Welcome, everyone. The topic of this panel is around workforce development. How do we build an Indigenous workforce in the networking field? And it's a critical area for the Indigenous Connectivity Institute. We are committed to ensuring that every Indigenous community in North America is able to get connectivity on their own terms. And one of the biggest barriers we've found to connectivity in Indigenous communities is a lack of a qualified workforce. So we're doing a lot of work. We have Indigenous connectivity workshops where we introduce mostly Indigenous youth, but not limited to Indigenous youth. We introduce them to what a career in networking could be, what it looks like. We have scholarships for youth. We're doing whatever we can to advance careers in networking among Indigenous people. Joel actually just recently wrote a paper for us looking at the barriers and opportunities to developing such a workforce. So we'll get into that a bit. But I'll start the panel off by just asking each of you to introduce yourself and what your role in workforce development is. So I'll start with you, Carlos.
Hi everyone, I'm Carlos Baca. I am very happy to be here and to know these beautiful territories. I live in Mexico. I work since more or less 10 years in the development of capacity building processes with Indigenous communities, first in Mexico, then Latin America, and now I am part of a project that is led by Rhizomatica and the Association of Progressive Communications that called Local Networks, and we developed some training in Latin America, Asia, and Africa around community networks.
Hello, I am still Joel Templeman, but in this scenario I am helping with the ICI with some of the workforce development research. My background is in education, so I actually started off as a teacher, K-12 teacher in special needs, and then did a stint in the military for a long time doing IT. That's when I got into IT. When I retired, kind of fused the two together, went back into technology in the classroom and looking at how we change the relationship between teaching and learning and the integration of technology in the classroom. So I'm coming to this project and the workforce development a lot more from the education side.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Muswaggon. I am from Pimicikamak Cree Nation in Manitoba, located on Treaty 5. I am currently the interim program manager for Manitoba First Nation SchoolNet, which is a division of Keewatin Tribal Council. So what SchoolNet does is it provides, it's an initiative designed to enhance educational experience in First Nations schools in Manitoba. So I am coming from the educational side, as Joel said. We've done a couple projects together. He's worked for the initiative that I am currently running right now. So we do train youth in First Nation communities to be our, I would say, beginner IT mentees in our community. So they are our workforce development in First Nation capacity building. And that's what I do so far.
Excellent. Thank you. I think my next question, I'm looking at the list of questions I had written, and I think they're in the wrong order. So I want to ask, and I'll just go down the line, each of you, given your experience. What is the biggest challenge that we face in increasing the number of Indigenous people, youth, older people, to get into the industry at this point? Whoever wants to go first can go first. Oh, we do have slides. Carlos has some slides, I believe. Could we get those up? Yeah, I think they're up there. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So I will not answer
Sounds good.
the question, because I think we need to understand first that maybe we have different understanding of workforce, no? The meaning of workforce for us may be a little bit different. And I want to share with you more the experience in which we have helped to develop the capacities in the communities to develop their own projects. So if you want to go to the next slide, and sorry, there's a lot of technologies here. So yes, just to mention that what I will share with you, it's part of the learnings that we have from two different projects that we implemented around indigenous connectivity. One of this training program for the coordination of ICT networks in indigenous and rural communities in Latin America that we developed since 2019 with the ITU and different organizations that we convene to develop this program in Latin America. And if I have time, I will share with you a video around this. And the other experience is the National School of Community Networks. We have been doing this since 2020. And we have these schools in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Brazil, and Indonesia. And all of them are very, very different between each other because we depart from the participatory action research methodology. No, some of the learnings that you heard in the last panel is something that we also share in these national schools, and that's why everything in there is as different. So one of the keys, I think, to start with this is that we need to depart that maybe the training that we need to develop needs to address specific communication and training needs in the territories. No, there are different ways of communication, and there are different ways in which the communities needs to be connected, not only through internet, for example, or to have access to broadband. But there is also different kind of projects that we have been developing based on this experience. For example, the HF radio networks that we are working in the Amazon region, for example. And also that this capacity building need to be very, very need to be matched with the ways of learning in the territory, that it is very different between each other. No, you know, the long history that the communities have also this kind of educational methodologies or pedagogies that needs to be addressed too. No, and we also depart from the technological experience of everyone. Everyone have at least changed, no, you know, some electrical things in your home. So we all have an electricity knowledge around this. We need to go also beyond the technical training, because technical is very important, but it's not only the main thing, but also address economical and social issues, and create spaces for mutual support in learning communities between peers, no, between the people in the communities. And finally, and I think this is really, really important, and it's the basics of everything, is to develop capacity building processes that depart from the breaking these paradigms or eliminate fears around how to deal with the technologies and who can be the one who deal with it. No? So just to mention three things that it is important. And one of these learnings is that the critical vision of the technologies that is part of these big training processes is key. No, in this photo we have a bamboo tower that we developed in Indonesia, and it's just one example of how we can develop more sustainable infrastructure deployment and involve the community in the project. No, there are all artisans that are part of this, and I have a lot of examples related, for example, to the creation of AI in Indonesia too, with shrimp farms, or the HF radio networks that I just mentioned, or the use of solar energy in other cases. The second learning is that peer-to-peer learning and the technical know-how is really, really important, no? Because they can address the lack of maintenance, for example, of the equipment. And so we be more sustainable also with less travel, with better handling of the equipment, and also less e-waste, no? We can generate less e-waste through that, and their networks can be more functional over time. And finally, and I think the key of everything is that the capacity building itself, beyond the topics that we address in the workshops, for example, the importance of creating learning communities between the people in the communities are one of the keys of the process. And also, for example, the relationship between the development of connectivity projects with community communication and production of local content is a really, really important part of this. And I related this last learning with the first panel of this Indigenous Connectivity Summit, because someone in the panel says that we need to focus in the services, not in the connectivity itself, and I think this is one of the parts of this, no? And yeah, finally, what is needed to strengthen the professionalization of participants of these kind of processes? Well, we need to access to financial resources to, for them to develop their own projects after finish the capacity building processes. We need more spaces and collaboration for specialization with the universities, with the research institutes, and the people who are doing the technologies itself. We need collaboration in complex technical challenge. No, we know that there are very, very specialized challenges that we need to deal with, and we need more collaboration on it. Access on information and training materials is another important key to restrain these processes. Spaces for peer-to-peer knowledge, internship and networking, for example, between the communities, increasing the effort for trainers in the communities. And finally, and this is very important for us in Latin America and the context in which we work, we need that the people have enough personal and family income to be able to attend this kind of trainings. No, a lot of people need to work, and they need to be working as a taxi, for example, as a taxi driver, so they can't go to the workshops, for example. And the last thing I want to share with you is an invitation to join us with this CN Learning Repository. Is the Community Network Learning Repository. We have a lot of materials there around community networks, around different topics like policy, the technical issues. We have also financial and economic resources, etc., etc. So please join us, and please share also materials that you think are important for us. And that is my presentation. It is very traditional, but I wanted to share with you some of the key ideas I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Carlos. Joel or Nikki?
Okay. So the biggest challenge in increasing the... Oh, wait, wrong one. Sorry. What was the question again?
In your experience, what's the biggest challenge in increasing the number of Indigenous people?
Okay, yeah, that was the one. Okay. So the biggest challenge in increasing the number of Indigenous people in the IT networking, is that the one?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, networking industry is addressing the systematic barriers to education and employment. So some of the challenges are cultural and social factors, geographic isolation, discrimination, and bias. So some of the ways that we can address these challenges to effectively address these challenges, a comprehensive and collaborative approach is needed. by enhancing educational opportunities, creating supportive pathways, cultural integration, improving access and infrastructure, and fostering inclusive work environments. By tackling these systematic barriers through targeted actions and sustained efforts, it is possible to increase the participation of Indigenous peoples in the IT and networking industry.
Yeah, and Nikki, I remember when we were in Winnipeg last month. Was it last? Yeah, last month. We held an Indigenous connectivity workshop in the North End. But a lot of the youth that you work with who are working as interns in the more remote parts of Manitoba weren't able to come or don't want to come to the city for training. Just wondering if you could talk a bit about that.
Oh yeah. Okay. So one portion of the program that I run is a youth initiative program. So we hire one to two youth per community of the 63 First Nation reserves. We currently have 58 participating in our youth initiative. So we hire 1 to 2 per community, and they work in the community as the youth IT mentees. And some of the barriers that they have, because we host one to two trainings a year where they come down to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and some of these communities are like far north, like close to Churchill, Manitoba. They're closer to the tundra, and some of the challenges they have is that they've never left their community, so they have like social anxiety leaving their community, or even just anxiety coming out and experiencing new things that they're unsure of. And then some of the aspects is that they have families and they can't leave, so we try to accommodate some of those aspects of their life and integrating them and integrating those kind of challenges into our program by helping them with daycare and just like some aspects of that. So it's just very some of the things is very challenging for our youth to come down, even though they love their jobs.
And a solution for some careers is to bring the training to them as opposed to bringing them to the training.
Yes, okay. So on to that. We're going to be hosting regional trainings so that they're not leaving their regions. This year we plan on hosting 2 in the north and then 2 in the south, kind of keep it regional to their territories, just so it's a little bit easier for them to adjust to the environment that they're learning in.
Joel?
Yeah, I think from the learner point of view, it's very difficult because a lot of the decisions about education are made from an urban center that take a lot of things for granted. So a lot of decisions about how the structures of learning and education are done are not relevant or don't match up well, so there's lots of gaps. And this is a very complex problem, right? All the way from the top level of this being federal, provincial, who has jurisdiction, who has responsibility, accountability for education in the province. How do you come up with a system-wide way to look at this? The other problem is that the great opportunity about IT in general is it's not a red seal trade, right? So if you look at plumbing or electrical or anything like that, there is a very clear final product. If you're not an electrician and you want to be one, there is a process that you go through, and that's easy because there's an agreed upon standard that you have to meet at the end. And educators can look at that standard, hey, what do we need a person to get to be this thing, whatever that is, and we'll work backwards from that. So you come into the program, we give you all the background, and we build all these supports around you, and you learn all the things you need to learn, and mentorship and on-the-job training and all those kinds of things, and then off you go. If you line up 10 electricians plus or minus experience, you're going to get basically the same skill set. You line up 10 network admins, and they're vastly different, and they don't agree with each other, and half of them won't talk to each other. But the world of IT is so vast and so open and so rapidly changing that it doesn't have a standard. So from an educator point of view, it's very hard to build a program to get you there. And from somebody coming into the IT world, you have to learn everything all at once tomorrow. That's impossible, right? So even when we're working with Nikki and her students, they come into Winnipeg for 5 days, they get fire hosed, and the questions are always like, how much is too much, what's critical for them to know, how do we spend time on the basics but then ever get to the advanced stuff, right? So building a curriculum and matching it to anything is very, very difficult, and you're never really done. So the other thing I think is important is that we, as a learner, how do you become an IT professional? If you look at the path of people who go through it, if you are in a connected, urban, affluent area, that's a very different model because you have those things. You have access to the internet to look things up. You can watch YouTube videos. You can get on forums. You can work at different companies or volunteer. You can do stuff because you have those things. But often those things aren't available in remote locations. So how do we balance getting people, building that community, building those supports, bringing in those learning things when we don't really even agree on what that final goal is? So it's very challenging academically, and from a teaching point of view, how do we build that pathway? So matching, I think that's why it's important to identify first all of these problems so that we know what we're dealing with, and then addressing and mapping different projects that ICI has or any of the projects that are out there, and understand what part of the problems, which problems are you specifically trying to address, and how does that all fit into it?
Excellent, thank you. Nikki and Carlos, you both are involved in projects that have been going on for a little while. Have you noticed a change? Well, I think I really have two questions for you. One is, have you noticed more interest in the programs? Carlos, for you, the boot camps. Nikki, for you, the SchoolNet program. Have you noticed an increase in interest of Indigenous people in the program? Is demand for the services growing?
Yes, the interest have been growing a lot in the last years. Just for give you an example, the last bootcamp we received almost 800 applications, and the year before that we received 150. So it's 8 times more the applications, and that's I think one of the key of this is that the message that they can do it by themselves, no? So they always, the people always think that, no, this is thing that the big companies need to do. I can do that. And when we start seeing some cases in the communities that can be the example, this replicate and the word they spread the word between their peers, so they want to be part of this. And this is also because there are very little, very few strategies that are tailored for the communities of educational processes like this, no? So that's why I think also that it is very, very, very a good idea to participate in it for this, for them, no? So yes, the interest is growing up.
Excellent. Nikki?
Yeah, so the interest is greater in some areas. So like say for the north in northern Manitoba, we had more interest in the communities over there when we're doing applications, just because of like they seen their friends working these jobs, and then how much their friends are having a really great time at these jobs. And then like them seeing that they got interest from there, and like just seeing the like activities that we do with our youth interns in the communities, and then with the remote training that we do with them, and then also the in-person trainings that we do with them by bringing them out and giving them these experiences that they don't normally have with other training programs that they offer. So when we bring them out, we offer them to do like institution tours. So it's like refurbishment labs, or even at post-secondary education tours. So we are able to do that with them, and then sometimes like they see these, we bring the youth out, and then we like give them these experiences that they don't usually have in the north, by taking them to like baseball games, that's some stuff that they don't experience up there. And then they see them like having fun, posting them on their social medias, and then like the next year after that, our application process doubles or even triples in some communities, which is great. But due to funding, like we're only allowed to accept as much as we could. This is just based off the leadership's direction. So we're always in constant contact with the leadership, and we decide as a collective together how many positions are available in each community based off the funding that they have in the community. So we try to maximize the opportunities that we give each community. So yeah, it's usually based off the applications per year that we get.
I think the funding one is important too, because like the SchoolNet program that Nikki's with is a great example of a way for more wraparound services. So you're not just hired as an intern and hey, there's a computer over there, go sort yourself out. There's a whole process. There's a whole year-long thing where they're supported. But it's much harder in a lot of these projects, community and network projects, and in education projects where long-term sustainable funding. You can't, so we train all these people, they're in the community, people work really hard to bring the training to them, either locally or regionally or whatever, or when they do come into an urban area that we maximize that time, work really hard, they do this great thing, their learning experience, they're enjoying it, but there isn't any long-term funding to keep them there. And then how does the next, how do you keep that machine going? How do we grow this? Because we'll never need less IT support and technicians, we're going to need more, right? So, and then as this is the deployment and adoption kind of cycle, right now we don't necessarily have a lot of people using a lot of technology in the community, but that's because what's there is not necessarily reliable or fast enough or serviceable. So, we need to kickstart that process, and I think funding and getting governments to understand the importance of investing in that longer term sustainable, because then people who are coming up as youth are going to say, oh, I see these people, I see more and more people getting into this job, that's something I want to do, right? That you can, if you see it, you can be it kind of an idea. You need to have that for the process in the long term.
So do you see the demand for training programs that are, culturally relevant and locally based? Do you see that increasing over the next 5-10 years? And do we have what we need to deal with that?
Yeah, I can see that happening. So I've been giving some of the post-secondary institutions in Manitoba kind of feedback about how there's not enough in intro to Indigenous, for especially with IT or networking administration programs, just because you can I talk to my interns when it comes to coming to the end of their say their internship, and I ask them what they're gonna do, what's their next steps, what they're gonna do. And this year we had a pretty successful rate of 70% of our interns are returning back to post-secondary, but it's unfortunate that they don't have these intro to network administrative programs, because they don't there's a vast majority of different types of work in IT, and if they had those kind of programs in these post-secondary institutions for them to explore these IT careers, that would be great, instead of them just going directly into one specific type of IT field. So I've been trying to give these post-secondary institutions feedback about how they should start up these programs for Indigenous youth, or even Indigenous people in general.
Carlos, do you see the demand only increasing over the next few years for your programs?
Yes, I think not only because of this need for a specific training program for Indigenous people, but also because of the model itself of the university, for example, is in crisis, no? So that's why different kind of solution, of training solutions are important, but the challenge is really big, and I think we are not prepared for that, no? I just came from the WISIS process last week, and we have been a lot of discussions around how to replicate this type of programs, for example, in Africa and Asia. and we think that we need to develop like a very good ecosystem in which the people can make their own paths of in training and develop their own capacities. But yes, we need a lot of resources to do that. We need a lot of people who are trained to do that, and also a lot of spaces in which they can work and be sustainable for them, no? Not only at community level, but also at personal level.
And just so everyone knows, WSIS is the World Summit on the Information Society. It's a UN process that started over WSIS plus 20 now, aren't we? Yeah, it started 20 years ago, really at the dawn of, well, not really the dawn, but to really drive connectivity forward as a means for development. Yeah, Joel, did you have anything to add to that?
I think that's critical. We need to look at learning right across the board. I mean, formal learning and relationships with post-secondary institutions and pathways are all very important, but I think we underestimate how much IT learning is done informally and amongst a community, and supports to building that and sustaining that and encouraging people to be part of that is, I think, critical. Because, like you said, the current education systems it's lacking. The K-12 system, I don't think we're going to find the solutions in there. We've gone from teaching on a blackboard to a whiteboard to a smartboard, but we're teaching the same lesson the same way. So I don't know. I think we need a new way of looking at what learning looks like, and not necessarily just putting all the money into formal. I think we have to look at the informal, the mentorships, the peer mentoring. Those things I think are just taken for granted maybe in the minds of educators who have it at their disposal. So seeing how that, where that's missing and how to fill those gaps, I think is critical.
Excellent. I'm going to ask each of you to name one or two things that you think need to change in order for us to be successful in building a network of networkers, a network of Indigenous network technicians, fiber splicers, you name it, across the board in IT. One or two things that needs to change.
Well, I don't know. For me, I think it's just the number one thing is to bring the training to the community based, so that they can keep the funding circulating in the community, especially with the knowledge. I don't know. That's just the one thing that most of the communities that I work with talked about is they would like for like, especially when it comes to like increasing the capacity with IT, they would like it community based. That's just the number one thing for me. I don't really have anything else after that. That's just from my experience.
I think the funding ideology behind funding needs to just fundamentally change. I think the fact that we're trying to commercialize and we look at return on investment at all in this situation needs to be thrown out. We don't need more competitiveness in the learning space. We need more cooperation, and we need to look at money that goes into this as investment. And if we're not necessarily, we shouldn't look at a thing saying, oh, that learning thing or that support network that we're paying for cost X dollars, that's money down the drain. That is investment money in people, in the community that will turn into economic development. Far too often, especially like federal or government dollars come in saying, hey, okay, we're gonna give you a bunch of money, but it's only for 2 years, then you'll be sustainable after that. We weren't sustainable before, we're not now. How do you think that suddenly this little rug of money that you're going to pull out from underneath us in a year is going to be helpful? So I think the funding model is a huge driving factor. How we change that, I guess we'll figure out.
Yes, I agree with the both of you on this, that it is needed to be community-based and also to change the funding model. But I think also to change and to rethink the learning process itself, no? How is the learning process, and what are the keys or the objectives that we are pursuing through the training processes, no? So the idea of learning, and also I think we need to rethink some of the concepts and make it more suitable for the communities. For example, digital inclusion or these kind of things that are part of all these environment around Indigenous connectivity. maybe we need to rethink and see what we can do from departing from these real needs and these real possibilities in the community.
Excellent. And if anyone has any questions, please go up to the mic. And while we're waiting for people to line up, I'll ask you, what is the number one way the people in this room can make a substantial difference in what we're trying to achieve? What can the people in this room do to help us all build that workforce? If no one steps up, I'll call on someone.
Okay. Well, I think that the people here are changing the things, no? Because we are only the thing that this summit exists is part of this changing, of these changes. But yes, we need to be more collaborative between each other. Maybe listen who are the others working on and make more synergies, no, around very practical things. I think we can start from it, no, to make some exchanges, to make some connection that can be part of good practices that we can share in the next connectivity summit.
Yeah, we can all learn from each other here. Nikki or Joel?
I think name your barriers, right? Don't wait. Address the problem and look at the things that are getting in the way of doing whatever it is in your particular community you want to do. And not just to focus on the negative, but to just clearly identify what the objective is and then build a strategy to address that. It's going to be different in every community. Your particular interest, your neighbor's particular interest, right? Find those partnerships and those relationships. But if you can, the problem sometimes is the elephant thing where it's just too big of a problem. So break it down and just say, okay, this is working and this is a barrier. Okay, what are we going to do about that? And then you're dealing with something that's manageable and bite-sized. It still might take a long time and a lot of money and a lot of effort to fix that thing, but at least you're not overwhelmed by all of the complexity of it all. So break things down into those pieces and then match your strategy for how you're going to attack that barrier.
No? Okay. And nobody's at the mic for questions. Please, if you have a question. There we go. Don't think it's on. Oh, he's coming. For the people watching online, we need you to speak into the mic. He's
Thanks.
a panelist and a mic runner.
I'm working in the PSI industry training alignment space, and I wonder, we talk a lot about training and content and curriculum, but how do we marry those two in terms of addressing the industry challenges alongside the learner challenges, particularly with underserviced communities and untapped talent communities? So where are we getting the content from that's going to address the issues, and how do we keep that relevant so that as soon as they walk out the door, it's not obsolete?
Joel, I think that might be one for you.
Excellent question. I would love to know what the answer to that is. That is really a massive problem, right? Again, one of the benefits of IT in general is that it's open and it's changing. But one of the problems is how do you shoot at a moving target, right? How do you ever know you're done? And the answer is, I guess, you don't, right? You're never really stop learning in IT. And there's tons of flexibility, and there's so many specialty areas, and they're growing every day. So yeah, I think that's the crux of the problem, is because as soon as industry identifies a need, there's that whole process where you go through the doctrine and the developing curriculum, and by the time all that happens, even if you're doing that in a fast way, you are pushing being out of date, right? There's always that chronic thing about the students coming out of formal education and going into the field. the people throwing up their hands saying, why are they teaching you all this? It's all so out of date, right? You've got that cycle process. So I don't have an answer for it, but therein lies one of the biggest problems is that cycle of identifying knowledge needs and that process. What we're doing now is not the answer because it cannot keep up. It's too old of a process. I don't have an alternative, but that would be a key to moving it forward on the formal education side.
Just wonder though, in terms of industry content and curriculum, is there an opportunity now, because we can't really wait, given it's a change, to work together to realign somehow this? Because if we keep kicking that can down the road, we're not training optimally, and then we have to retrain. So it becomes a cost issue, and when you think about funding as flow-through, it's not, the government won't look long-term, so we don't have that ability to do that. That's where industry may step in, though, in terms of that funding piece. But if we don't get our act together around the content piece and figuring that out, what's your best case scenario around alignment of industry and maybe them taking responsibility for some of that?
Well, and that's one of the things the ICI is exploring as part of its workforce development project is, how do we align and reconcile with industry needs? I think a lot of the training should be driven by industry and not necessarily government funded, because government funding, as we all know, is not sustainable. If government of the day changes, those funding pots can evaporate. So I think that's a longer conversation that we can have here, but I think it's a very important one. And we have another gentleman at the mic, but while he's asking the question, I'll just give a heads up to the AV team that you should have a video that will be playing immediately after this. So please, your question.
Hi, thanks for everyone's input, feedback. It's very interesting. I think where I work in Quebec, we support 22 communities in education, and we've been able to get funding for salary for technicians. So we see a lot of level 1 technicians in the schools now, but at various levels of capacity. So what we're looking at is developing an accredited college certificate, around 900 hours worth of instruction, that will bring them up to a certain level where we could start developing at a some kind of pace where we could monitor. But we have challenges in access in terms of local access to training centers, to training facilities. Schools are full. There's no space in schools. So there's a need there for providing First Nations more resources to develop those local training centers, if you will. In terms of curriculum, Cisco was there. I'm not promoting Cisco by any means, but we've been using Cisco material for many years to deliver our youth program like you do in Manitoba, where we bring them in for a week. They go back home, they take online training for 70 hours, and they come back and get their certificate. So there's many ways where we're trying to leverage companies like that, but again, it's all about giving access to communities to do training. So that's my point.
It's an excellent point. Thank you. And we are at time. Could we show the video, please?
Del 20 al 30 de abril de 2024, se desarrolló en la ciudad de Guatemala la fase presencial del Programa de Formación para la Gestión de Redes TIC en Comunidades Indígenas y Rurales de América Latina 2023-2024. Quienes participaron en el bootcamp son personas que concluyeron exitosamente los 5 cursos en línea impartidos a través de ITU Academy.
I mean,
Las temáticas...
my Spanish is uno taquito, por favor. But I think that's it. We are at time, so I'd like to thank our panelists very much. That was a great discussion.
Thank you.